Hello, welcome back to Quilted Cactus. In this video, this is the third and final installment of the Aurora Bag by Petal Designs or Petal Patterns. We will be working on the handle and then doing the final construction of the bag. This is, I appreciate you sticking with me through all three videos. And I know it was a little long for a small bag, but because we added a few extra features, and I didn't want my videos to be 3 hours long, I broke it down in some segments. That gives you a little break in viewing. We are going to just slightly deviate from the order of the pattern, simply because on page 22 is the final assembly of the bag, and because we're adding the zipper placket, we will deviate from that slightly. So what I'm going to do before we do the final assembly, because number one, I wanted to go ahead and do the strap, and since we are going to deviate from it a little bit, plus two, I think doing the final assembly of the bag at the very end of the tutorial is kind of like the ta-da, here it is, completely done kind of look. I think that's kind of neat. Okay, but we already kind of got an idea from the first video when we constructed the exterior, but still, I mean, the 100% done. Okay, so we're going to do the strap. Now, the strap, and honestly, I cannot remember. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in the first video, and I don't remember, so I'm going to go ahead and say it just in case. So when you do your straps, depending on which length of straps, and again, this is the longer of the two straps. She has a 21 3/4 and a 17. This is for the 21 3/4 inch strap. You will have two pattern pieces for the straps. You will have one longer strip and one shorter strip. No matter which length you go, you'll still have one long and one short. So pay close attention to your pattern pieces, and make sure you read, because she does clearly state on the pieces of the pattern which handle it's for, because I kept getting myself confused because I kept seeing a shorter piece and I'm matching the two short pieces, because when I cut all the pieces out, I just cut everything out when I originally got this pattern, and then I was matching my pieces, and so I would like put my two short pieces together, my two long pieces, but then when you read the pattern pieces, you seen one that said 17 3/4, the other says 21. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. These are the same sizes. So I only mention it because it confused me when I originally did this, when I originally set it out. I didn't cut anything wrong. I just had to think about it. So I just wanted to throw that tip out to you to help you along. Okay. So with your straps, she gives you, when you cut your stabilizer out, she gives you the measurement of where the stabilizer goes in the pattern piece. The pattern piece will have little dash marks showing you where the, I'm gonna grab one real fast so I can show you. She has little dash marks showing you where the stabilizer is cut, but that is also where the stabilizer should be placed on your strap. It's very important that you cut your stabilizer how she has you cut it, and it's very important where you place your stabilizer, because that aids in constructing this strap. So what I did when I did my strap, I have my pattern piece that I used to cut the exterior, the strap piece, and then I cut, I printed another one. Again, this was to help me in cutting the stabilizer to make sure I was accurate in my pieces. But then I took another piece, printed it out, and then I cut it along the dashed lines, so I make sure I have a correct stabilizer piece. Okay, that's just a tip, another tip, a Tony tip, let's call it. I'm sorry, it's a long day. Trying to get this finished up, and actually this is Mother's Day, and this is my time in my sewing room. So that's what I wanted to do after I did all my little Mother's Day stuff. I wanted to go in my room and sew for the remainder of the night. So anyway, I got this one done. This is the longer of the two, and I got this done so you can see how this is folded over like that. My edges are folded over, so when you look at it from the right side or the right side, you see the finished folded edges. So what you're going to do, I have my stabilizer on my shorter of the two pieces, and then I have double-sided tape along the long edge. This is 1/4 inch tape. You can use, sometimes I use 1/8 inch tape, especially if I'm sewing on my domestic, because the domestic doesn't have the force, or it won't, it'll skip stitches on my domestic if I hit the tape in any which way or form. But my industrial can go through the tape. I just have to be careful, making sure I don't, of course, don't get a sticky needle. But anyway, so I've got my double-sided tape on, and what you're going to do, again, careful placement of your stabilizer. I know I've said it 1,000 times already, but I feel it's very warranted because it makes your strap, it will make your strap look good. So you're going to peel off one side of your backing of your double-sided tape. And then what you're going to do, oh, my garbage box has moved. Hold on just a second. Okay, sorry about that. My garbage box moved. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold this over. I'm going to try to keep it as close to the camera so you can see. You're going to take this edge where I pulled the tape off, where I pulled the backing of the double-sided tape off. I'm going to fold it over against, let's do it this way, against the stabilizer. So if you see, there's the stabilizer, there's my piece, and I'm going to take it and fold it over the stabilizer with my folded edge up against that stabilizer piece. I think you can see what I'm talking about. So I've got there's my stabilizer. Let's get use my little seam ripper. So there's my stabilizer. My end of the stabilizer is right up against that fold. So you're going to fold it up and over that stabilizer piece. Be careful as you go. Don't yank, don't pull, go over easily, and then you'll get that, and when you get to that curved edge, just gradually go over it and push it down. And it's a slight curve, so you should not need to do any kind of snips, should not have any puckers. As long as you're careful, you push it down and you just be easy. Now when you get it down, now this is a faux suede, so it's a little more soft. So I don't want to I've got to be careful as I put it down, but I'm just going to push it a little further with my hands, just give it a press. My little roller is out of reach, so we're not going to go get that. So I'm just going to hold it down with my fingers, just give it a little press, be careful. Exact same thing on the opposite side. Fold it in over that, and you should see the curve of the handle. And I really like that this handle also has a nice little shape to it. It's a cute little bag. It has a great shape to the bag. That's really what I like so much about it, is the shape and everything. So I'm just going to push it down a little bit. Again, if you have a firmer or a thicker, heavier weight vinyl, of course you can do a little more manhandling with it, but because again, this is soft and I don't want to stretch it. So there's my strap. So you can see that it has that nice little shape to the strap. Okay. Now, as reference for the pattern, the handle construction does start at the bottom of page 24. So pages 22 up to the top of 24 is where is final assembly, and then at the bottom of 24 is the handle. So that's where the handle construction part comes through. Okay. So then what you're going to do is, remember how we marked the centers of this, and I just did a little marks, and this is just my little chalk mark. I can remove that with a wet wipe, a water wipe, not a wet wipe, a water wipe, water-based. So I'm going to take this, and I have found trying to use double-sided tape to hold these together is not very effective, because you've got this fold over here, and this fold over here. So you're creating a bit of a, there's like a bit of a gap in between. And it doesn't, to me, I didn't find that it held well. So as long as you match up your centers and clip it well, you shouldn't have any problems with it shifting or moving. You just got to make sure you clip it well. So I'm going to take these clips off. These were just holding my pieces down just in case the tape decided to get a little unstuck, because this actually was prepared. I did this probably this piece has probably been done for a couple of weeks. So anyways, so you're going to take your center, watch your centers there, and you're going to take your center on this piece, and you're going to match, put them wrong sides together, matching the centers of the handle. So I'm going to take my centers, match them up. If you want, you can take it and carry your line up to the edge so you can see it right on the edge. Like that. I'm just going to do a little mark here just to carry that little line up to the edge so I can see the edges, and then match those up. I am going to clip it, hold it in place. I'm going to get my heavier clips that I use, because I don't want my handle to slip. So I'm going to dump me a couple clips out. I know I'm dumping out way more than I need, but hey, why not? So I'm going to clip it right there where my centers have met. I'm going to go to the other side. Make sure, don't just trust that they haven't shifted, but make sure that they still match on the other side. All right. And I'm going to clip the other side like that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your the rest of your handle and then just take it and push it down against the other side, making sure that your piece stays straight. I like to just take my fingers and run along the sides to make sure one isn't poking out over the other. You can clip from center out. Just take it and just get your clips and clip from the center out. Kind of like that. That just holds it real well. Again, I love these little guys. They've got the alligator clips out now, which oh, I can't think, it's Jackson Low, which are really great clips. I didn't get those. I opted to go ahead and get these, and I just bought these from Amazon. And I do like these. I've seen these type of clips in patterns, so I just kind of like these. Nothing wrong with the other ones, don't get me. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this other clips. I just opted to go ahead and do these instead, and I do like these actually. Okay, so I've got like at the one side, and then I'm going to go and clip the other side. Now keep in mind, you will have a piece that hangs over like this, where you've got a gap where this piece ends and this piece begins. This, the longer piece of the two, will be the exterior of the handle. This piece, the shorter piece, will be the underneath of the handle. So I'm just going in and clipping. Oh. I just got to be careful how I grab them because of my wonderful joints, but that's fine. Actually, I didn't get out too many clips, did I? I had just enough clips. So I'm all clipped up. There is the under part of the handle right here. So you've got that little hangover there. And then you've got that there. And then this is the top of your handle like that. So your handle will go like this. So, and then because this will get folded up like that. And that will create the loop for your gate ring that holds it onto your bag, which is really, really kind of neat. It's a really neat idea. So and then what you're going to do is you are going to top stitch both sides of this handle. You are going to start from the end and sew all the way down. You will start from the long end, not from the short end, but the long end. Take it, go all the way down to the other end, back up again, and then stop back up where you started. So you will be doing that. I will go ahead and get this started. Of course, you want your top stitch length and 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Get this out of the way because the strap is going to knock things off of my table. Get a hold of my threads. And then again, like I said, it's a 1/8. And I do have a full bobbin, mind you. I remember in the last video, I was terrible and I had ran out of bobbin and I had to pause the video twice for bobbin threads. Okay, so be careful when you're sewing these. I just noticed that my little handle, my little short end, the piece was sticking out just a tad bit. So just be wary of that. I will stitch though. Be careful so your bottom piece also doesn't get hung up. I will stitch from the top side of the the top of the handle up, because I like the way that the thread looks that way versus having the bobbin thread on the bottom of the or versus having the bobbin thread on the top, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to go slow. Keep an eye on your strap and making sure it stays as straight as you can, where you don't have any overage of your strap, meaning you don't have the underneath of the strap poking through. And just follow the shape of the handle. Remember, there is a curve in this handle. So you definitely want to take your time so you can work with that curve. Keeping your clips on that side too, because if you start moving your clips or taking the clips off this side, when you stitch this side, it will pull up on that side. I've made mistakes where I've taken my clips off too soon and then everything starts to shift. And then it's like, why did I do that? I mean, that was just silly. No reason that I took the clips off. I just did, thinking I didn't need them, I guess. I don't know. I just need to check this one, make sure this is not peeking out. There we go. Again, we're going all the way to the very end of the long part of the strap. And I'm just going to turn it and go. And then just take it and go over. I need to get just one. There we go. Keeping again at the 1/8 of an inch. Making sure that still stays tucked under there. Just take your time. Well, I'm going a little faster, I know, but if you're not comfortable, definitely slow down. All right, let's clean up my threads here so we don't have threads in the way. All righty. Strap is just about complete. I mean, that was kind of quick on your strap. I think it took me longer to talk about it than it did for me to sew it. So there's the strap. There's the top of the strap there. So you've got all of that. And then here is the underneath of the strap. So see how it's sewn all the way up over, just what you went right over that, and you did that to both sides is what you were supposed to do. Okay, so then what you're going to do is in her pattern, she gives you measurements where to place the rivets on there. So go ahead and mark where she tells you to place the rivets at on here. You will basically fold it over that edge, so you're not so that's not exposed. So you'll be folding it over some. So she'll give you the measurements to place your rivets. So I'm going to go ahead and check out my rivet spot. So she's got you using the gate ring as the measurement. I can't tell you that. So she has you put the gate ring on, and then tells you the measurement from approximately from the end of the gate ring, which that makes sense. So let's do that. Let's get a measurement here. See where we're at. That works. Okay. So she gives that to you. I'm going to put a small clip here. I'm going to take the gate ring off. I'm going to make a mark. So what I did is I folded it over based on the measurement she gives you from where the gate ring is, but you don't want to do all the punching and everything with the gate ring on it. So I'm just going to make a small little mark here with my chalk pencil so I know where to fold it to, and then take the gate ring off. So I'm going to go ahead and take it, put it back. I'm going to put a clip on it, and then I'm going to make my measurement of where to put the rivet, because this is just let's see, does she tell you to sew? She tells you to put the hole. Let's see. Give me 2 seconds here. Yeah, there is no sewing the strap. You're not going to be sewing this on at all. It's basically just a rivet holding it shut. So we'll go ahead and make the mark for the rivet. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out for that. Let's see where we at. I'm going to make my little mark. Okay, then I'm going to punch the rivet. And I think I picked up my rivets for my gunmetal rivets. I put those away. I have since I last did this, so give me a second. I will have to put you on pause. So what I do when I do this, when I do the first hole, when I have to go through multiple layers, see, I made the mark for my rivet on this strap, on this end, and then I just punch. First I punch the hole through here first, then I'm going to lay it back down where I had that, where I've got that little mark at, lay it back down, and then make sure my strap is centered where you're not seeing it, it's not twisted or overhang, you know, from one side or the other. I'm going to take my pen and mark through that hole where I placed my rivet hole already, and just put a mark there. You just very, very faint, but there's a mark to make sure that the hole is accurate, because sometimes if you're not careful, when you do punch the holes like this through all of the layers at one time like that, it can shift. Let me say this, probably 9 times out of 10 it will shift, and then your piece, when you put the rivet on, your piece gets all, you know, goofy looking, and obviously you don't want that. So the best way, I mean, it takes an extra step, but that's the best way to do it, to make sure your rivet is as accurate as you can get it. You're taking the best precautions you can to set your rivet. So I'm going to punch the other hole, get that set where we want it, get my gate ring back. I'm just going to, again, you're just using the gate ring as the placement of your measurement that she gives you, where to put your, where the fold stops. All right, so that's where that should be there. Now I'm going to mark where my rivet goes. There it is. Make sure it covers it up. Okay, make my little mark here. Punch my hole in the first one first. I do not use a holding. I can hold this if I have to, but I do not use a hole punch where I have to hold it and squeeze it. I cannot squeeze a punch. My hands won't allow me to do that. Well, let me reword that. It's very, very painful, and I can't. I have the hardest time to squeeze that punch because my hands. So I have to. I found this on Amazon, and it's really, I really like this hole punch. It's a lot easier for me. All right, so I'm going to put this on a quick pause, and then I'm going to get these riveted real quick. I'm going to rivet these shut, just so you know. These are going to get riveted shut without the gate rings on, because remember, they're the gate rings, so you can put them on. They'll have that little clasp, so you can slip them on after. So I'm not putting the gate rings on, but I am getting these riveted shut real quick. I'll get them riveted and then wipe off my little marks, and then I will be right back. All right, we are back. We have our straps completed, where I've got my rivets in on the straps, like on both sides. Again, my gate rings are not installed with it because we can easily just clip the gate rings on once the bag is completely 100% completed. So that's the beauty of these gate rings, and I think that's a really neat idea. I think it's really cool. I really do. I like the way she thought about that. Okay, so guess where we're at, guys? Finally, you can say finally. She is finally getting to the end of the bag. Okay, so as we had stated, we kind of skipped over pages 20. Let me go back real fast. I skipped over page 22, okay? So if you were to make the bag as the pattern is written, meaning you've got your zipper here on this exterior of this bag, that's where that comes into play. But since we do not have to worry about the zipper being on the exterior of the bag or anything like that, we are ready to actually sew the lining to the bag. Okay, so we are at that step now. So I'm going to get some of my stuff out of the way. I'm going to get this strap out of the way as well. And then you're basically going to clip this bag. Make the bag like you do any other bag. You are going to take your exterior of your bag, drop it down in the lining of your bag. Just when you do that, make sure, like, here's my front of my bag here because I've got the seam, and then my slip pocket I want at the front of my bag. So when I slip this in, I make sure that the slip pocket is at the same side as my seam, the front of my bag. Make sure your little strap connectors are tucked down in there. Oh, and also I didn't show you when I started, I've got my strap ends on. See how much that adds to the bag? I really like that look when you put the strap ends on the bag. But anyway, we'll admire more of that once we get it done. So you're going to take your bag, and you will have to squish it a little bit, which is fine. So push it down in there. Nice, and there you go. It should set right in there. I got a couple threads that I need to clean up. Oh, nope, that's just a thread that's hanging on. Okay, so when you get your bag down inside the lining, you want to match your centers of your bag. So get your centers of your bag, I gotta find my center. I had it. There we go. Make sure that little zipper placket is folded down when you do this. Although it's not a big placket and it should not get in the way of your seam when you sew your lining to your bag exterior, it shouldn't get in the way because it's so small. But you still want to go ahead and push it down because it adds a little bit of bulk, and it could push your pieces apart a little bit. So you want to go ahead and match your centers. Typically what I will start off with is my sides of my bag. I will go ahead and start off marking these sides first. I'm going to use these nice big heavy duty clips. Seams open on your where you match your seams up here. You want to open these up, and these are where my gusset meet my gusset pieces. I'm matching up my gussets. I'll show you here in just a second. I got to get this seam doesn't want to open. There we go. I'm going to match these up, and I'm going to put a clip, and then I will show you what I'll do a small clip first just to show you, and then I'll change it out with the big clip. So see, you're taking where you've got your gussets here from your lining and your exterior of your bag, or this is your lining and this is your exterior. But anyways, you're matching, opening your seams and then matching your seams where they are sewn together. You're matching those up. So you should have the seam, you know, where the seams are sewn together, they should match up. And then you want to clip those first and get those clipped together. Make sure they lay flat, and then your gusset in between these two pieces, this should lay nice and flat. It should. You shouldn't have, if you have a pucker at all, it shouldn't be much of any, and that should work its way out as you sew around it. I go to the other side. I do the exact same thing on the opposite side. I'm gonna get this seam here. It needs just angleized a little bit. It's sticking up, and I'm gonna just angle that. There we go. Put that up. Grab your other side. Again, you will have to probably work with your bag a little bit. Pull it down some. Make sure your placket gets pushed down, and your zipper. Don't make sure your zipper tape, where you've got your little tail end of your zipper tape, make sure that doesn't get in the way as well. I have sewn zipper tape up in my seams as well. You name it, I've probably done it. I mean, honestly, I'd say probably almost all bag makers have probably said I've done that too, because I've seen somebody do it, and then I'm thinking, well, I've done it, and then they feel silly, and then it's like, well, I've done the same thing. Not to say that because I did it, they shouldn't, but I'm not the only one that comments that they've done it too. So anyway, so just work it in, and you just work your centers, and then you go from your centers of your front and back panels, and then clip that center, and then just work it out to where you've got that worked out, and then you go to the other side and you do the same thing. You match your centers, and then I've found once you match your centers and you got to work those other pieces in, if you just grab it and just do it like this, honestly, that's really all it needs sometimes for it just to fall into place. The only way it really wouldn't is if you were really terribly off on your on a seam allowance somewhere where between your lining and your exterior of your bag, your seam allowance was way off. If you find that you have a really big pucker, you could always work with your seam allowance, work with your lining, and maybe, like, if your lining was a little bigger and you're just mainly concerned about you could always work with that seam allowance a little bit. I mean, honestly, you don't want to go crazy because that could mess up the whole thing. But you could, if you needed to take in your seam allowance just a tad bit, you could pull it over. I mean, a little bit. I mean, I'm not talking any major changes, but just to help work it better so you don't get a pucker in your top of your bag. but it should, as long as, like I say, as long as you're cautious with your seam allowances, you shouldn't have any issues. I am going to throw a little bit, some double-sided tape on these pieces that I left along. I could actually, I could trim these down a little bit, where this is at. Trim it, you can trim this down a little bit so these don't stick out, or you can just throw some double-sided tape. I'm going to trim it down because I'm not worried about it being, I mean, you're just going to trim it down to about 1/8 of an inch away from this seam. And that just keeps that because it's kind of wants to stick out a little bit, especially when you try to flatten the seam out at the top. And you just really don't want to be any more, you want to at least leave 1 inch from the top of your bag. And you trim these down. There we go. So I did all that little, I just trimmed this down a little bit up to about 1 inch from the top. Just that's so that, because that was sticking out and I was afraid that was going to poke out in the bag and just kind of make that lining not fit well. Okay. So then what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and stitch all the way around. Do not leave any openings. You're going to go completely around the top of the bag and sew it completely shut at the seam allowance she gives. Now, the seam allowance, keep in mind, the seam allowance that she gives is with the zipper installed on the directly to the bag, not using a placket. However, I still stay with that seam allowance. So I do not change the seam allowance even using a zipper placket. I keep it the same seam allowance as she recommends with using the zipper attached as the, I should say, using the zipper as the pattern is written. I stay with that same seam allowance, even though I could probably go in a little deeper. I just stay with it. I don't change that at all. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a stitch shut, and then I will get it started. What I will do once I get sewing this on, then I will go ahead and hit pause on the camera, and then when I come back, I'll have it all stitched together. So we'll go ahead and get it started. I typically like to sew in the back of the bag first. It's just, even though you won't see this seam, it's not like sewing the top stitching. I still go ahead and start sewing in the back of the bag first. Since this is a flat bag, sometimes it does make it a little more difficult to sew with these, but this has got a nice wide opening, so it is a little easier to sew this. Now these clips are huge. That's probably where those alligator clips will come in handy, because they're not so as big as these guys. These things are big and they do get in the way. I still like them though. Let me fix this just so I can hold it still until I can get it under the machine. There we go. So let's get that down. Again, make sure I can feel my zipper placket when I push down. And like I say, it's not that it's going to get sewn in the seam allowance. It's just pushing, it's like pushing some bulk there. And if you push it down, you can get rid of that. So I'm going to go in at my seam allowance, given in the pattern. Let me get it marked here, because I'm not going to, you know what, I'm not going to start sewing in the curve. That's just silly. So what I'm going to do, because that's kind of harder to do that if you start sewing in the curve, I'm going to actually start sewing on the straight edge. I think that would be easier to start sewing when you start sewing and on the straight edge, and then that way as you go down the curve you can work it around. I don't use a seam guide. I've tried. I'm just not real, I don't know, I'm not sure why I struggle with seam guides. Honestly, I don't know why, but I do struggle with seam guides. I always end up bumping them, moving them, even getting this when I have a metal, more heavier base where the seam guide could stick to. I mean, I've got a curved seam guide right here that I could use, but I always bump it, move it, and mess up my seams. And I'm a little better controlled with my seams than but by hand than using the actual seam guide. I have a fancy one that one of these days I'm going to figure out how to install it. I just haven't found tutorials yet to install it. So anyway, so we're just going to go down and around again, the seam allowance that she gives. And you're going to have to probably go slow, simply because you've got that curve. So you're just going to have to go slow to work with that curve. Make sure you stay true to your curve. I know it's hard for you. I know you can't see exactly what I'm doing. But again, we're going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and pause, especially since I can't get the camera moved to where you can see exactly what I'm doing. You just go slow and work with the curve of your bag. All right, so I've got half of it already done. Let me go. There we go. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and hit pause, finish stitching this up, and then we will turn the bag right side out once I come back. Be right back. Okay, so we are back. I've got the top of the bag completely sewn shut. So you can see it's all sewn shut. Since this is a small seam allowance, then there's no trimming needed. The only thing that I would maybe recommend, and it's really not trimming, is if you have pinking shears, I would recommend you just run your pinking shears. I mean, really just basically run it over that edge a little bit, just to give you some notches. And I'm talking the slightest bit of trim of this. Again, we're just cutting just the slightest bit off, just to give it some notches, because this is a curve, and when you turn it right side out, that will help reduce bulk in that curve. It's kind of hard. It's not easy. And we're just doing just that littlest bit. I mean, we're talking that little bit. I mean, it's just basically taking that top, just basically taking off that top and putting just notches in, really, honestly. This, the width of your ridges on your pinking shears on anyways. There we go. Just all I'm doing it is in the curve. I'm only doing this in the curve. See, that's all I'm taking off here. I'll show you. So that's all I'm doing, is just doing a little bit there. Let's go to the other side and trim that. And this is, like I said, this is not for bulk purposes. Essentially, it's mainly for just to help that curve relax better when you turn it right side out. I got these side seams where there's a little bit of bulk in my pinking shears. There we go. And I got to be careful that I don't cut too far into the seam. There we go. Make sure this didn't fall down into the base of the bag. Some of my pieces. There we go. All right, so that's all I did, is basically just give it some ridges where there's just some little hills and valleys. So when I fold this right side out, when it lays down, it will lay better, because when you're crunching up those layers together, sometimes you get a little bit of a bulkiness. Okay, so this is where we're going to turn our bag. So when we got our bag is open at the bottom. Now you can, if you want, you can leave the bottom open a little more. I think she has you probably in the pattern leave it open a little more wider, maybe like an inch on each side than I have. It makes it easier to turn, but I like to go a little bit in, it just so helps me when I sew the lining shut. I've got that curve already in my lining, but I believe in the pattern she has you stop about an inch back on each side. So anyway, so you're just basically going to reach in through that hole, pull your bag out through the hole, just grab hold of it, and then pull it out. And as long as you make sure you backstitch well on your lining piece where you stop for where you put the hole was at, you should be okay. It shouldn't rip, but I always give it a few, I mean, not rather just a big quick back. I do it a couple, 3 times maybe, and that just keeps it from ripping. So all right, we got our bag turned like that, and then you can take your lining and you push your lining down inside the bag. Now keep in mind, remember, we've got an upper lining piece, so that's not the top of your bag. Your top of your bag is going to be right here when you do it this way. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to push it down where you've got that lining where your upper contrast and your exterior bag is. And you're going to probably need to reach in and push out these corners where your bag, sides of your bag meet, where it starts going around the curved edges. So you're going to want to push those corners out real nicely. You might need a turning tool or something. Push out your seams a little bit so they lay flatter. And just kind of work with it. You can use your hands or a turning tool. I'm just going to use my fingers right now. And if your seams match up well, you should have a nice matching seams. Again, work that seam out, push that out, kind of push where your upper lining and your bag meet. Just kind of push that seam out a little bit. I'm going to push my lining down inside the bag and then work with that. Work those edges like that. So you're just kind of giving them a work, and then I'm going to clip it. Now, because I have this flatbed, I should be able to, because this is a nice wide opening, I shouldn't have to turn my bag inside out to top stitch. I should be just fine. But if I had a more narrow opening of a bag, I would actually have to turn my bag inside out to sew to top stitch, so the exterior top stitch came from my upper thread instead of my bobbin thread. That's because I like the looks of the upper thread better as a top stitch than my bobbin thread. Sometimes the bobbin thread can just be a hair off. I mean, not off. It's hard to. It doesn't. Sometimes the bobbin thread doesn't look as nice as it would be if I used my top thread. It's really, really hard to explain by just talking about it. But I have seen it where, based on your materials, and rather than going in and adjusting your bobbin thread, because I know people will say if you just adjust your bobbin thread, you shouldn't have that issue, which that is a true statement. I'm not a big fan of going around messing with my tension on my bobbin. There's a reason why I waited to get an industrial, because I had one of the first sewing machines I had before I got the one my husband got me, that was just a plain old domestic Singer sewing machine. I had my mom's old Singer sewing machine. We're talking the 1950 Singer sewing machine. And I'm going to tell you what, I fought with that thing all the time. And that's when I first started doing sewing on a machine, which was, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. And I messed the bobbin up. I had the bobbin tension all messed up. And I'm just like, and I knew an industrial, you have all those that have bigger concerns. So what I tried to do with my industrial, because I have my Elna sewing machine that I use now, my domestic is my Elna sewing machine is what I use. I use that for lighter weight threads. If I have a cotton or even something maybe just a slightly thicker that I'm going to sew with, and I don't have to worry about what my bobbin thread looks like, I will sew on my domestic. Otherwise, I try not to touch this bobbin because, again, it creates a whole host of problems, and I just don't want to mess that all up. And I have to buy new bobbin cases and all kinds of fun stuff like that. Okay, so enough of that. So we've got our bag pushed out. I'll show you here what we got. This is what I was working on as I was chit-chatting. So I got my base nice and hooked out. I've got where my upper lining is and my exterior meat. I've got that all worked out, and I went ahead and clipped around it. And that way it helps to relax it better as I sew around it. Rather than try to keep twisting and turning it under a sewing machine. So I've got it nice and clipped, and I'm gonna tell you what, I like it so far. Look at that. And then I like that I have my little zipper placket, but then I like my little upper piece. I think it looks really nice, and I love on this particular bag that I updated my placket. Using my placket, I updated my gusset because my other ones, and I'll show you at the end, my other ones, I updated it to show that this is all together. It all matches together versus having my lining, gusset lining go up to the top, and then you just see the exterior just here and here. And this would, which they don't look bad, don't get me wrong, I like them, but I love this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and top stitch the exterior. What I have to do in order to top stitch this is I just basically kind of got to push this back a little bit like that, and then start stitching, making sure that little gusset, that little tiny baby zipper placket I should say, is down, and then give it a, you just kind of got to manhandle a little bit. I always start in the back of my bag. It hides, I feel in my mind, I feel like it hides a whole host of mistakes, which it doesn't always, but that's the way sometimes I think. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move it on up. I got clips getting caught. There we go. Well, we're not having good luck here with clips. I don't have the big ones on here because this is just simply just to hold this top down where we could stitch it. But give me a second here to get this worked in. All right, give it work in there, and I'm going to stitch now, because where I'm going to start my stitching, I'm going to go ahead and back stitch. I've got variegated thread, so I can hide it better than if I had like a contrasting thread. You would have to do your threads, pull it through, and I can't think off the top of my head who has a tutorial on that. If you Google it, you could not Google it, but if you search it on YouTube, you could probably find where you could pull your threads through your top stitching of your bag. But I can back stitch. I got the variegated thread, and where I'm starting and stopping my stitching, you not necessarily will see it. I'm just going to go one thread back and forward, and then just work with my thing. Again, work with your curvature, but we're at 1/8 of an inch. Get my light, there we go. Make sure my light's hitting my thing. There we go. Just work with your curvature. Go, like I keep saying, go slow. Or I have to probably keep telling myself to go slow so I don't get a lead foot. I think you get a little bit of bulk where your seams meet, your center panels meet with your side panels. So just kind of work with that so you don't have skip stitches there. shift it a little bit. I'm at the sides now. There we go. Make sure I am, there we go. All right. Just watch your little placket. Keep that bulk out of the way. There we go. Almost done, guys. Really, honestly, we are almost there. Get this. It's not like you can see my sewing machine any better by doing that, but there we go. Keep her going. We're almost there. All right, we're on our last. All these little obstacles here. I've got little strap connectors thingies hanging. I've got zipper plackets. Okay. I'm having a small issue here. It's not wanting to, there we go. I just need to make sure that lays flat. Get this last clip out here. Just make sure when you get to the other side, or when you meet the end where you started, that you are matching up. All right. We are like almost done. So I've got this. I'm going to really very, very carefully singe a thread. Just be careful with the vinyls that you have. There we go. All right, so there it is. There's the exterior of my bag. It's all done. There's my front. There we go. Boom. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to reach into the pocket. I need to unzip the pocket first. We're going to reach down inside the pocket, pull the lining up through the pocket like that. Just give it a nice little tug. And again, I had mentioned when I did this, the best way of doing this is when you sew your lining together, the opening of your the gusset part that needs to be left open needs to be on the opposite side of where you place your pocket. So if your pocket's in the back of the bag, you want to leave the opening of your gusset in the front part of the gusset. That goes to the front of your bag, or your lining that goes to the front of your bag, because that makes it easier to pull through. Otherwise, you're trying to pull a lining through the pocket that's got the same hole in it. It makes it really, really hard to do this part. All right, so we're gonna get this pulled through, and then go ahead, match it up, just like you're sewing it, as if you were doing this without it being pulled out of the inside of your bag. Get it clipped up good. I got my centers marked still, so that'll work. I can match with my centers, clip it, so get some clips in here. And then you're going to sew this at the seam allowance that you're supposed to use on your lining piece, not the top, not your main seam allowance, but the larger seam allowance. When we do the big part of the lining, this is the seam allowance you're going to use for that. Make sure you go back down to your stitching length of your stitch length of your stitching, if that makes sense, which probably doesn't. All right, and then go ahead and start sewing. I'm going to do a back stitch, and I start sewing back past where I stopped. So I will start my stitching probably about 1/4 of an inch back into the stitching, like the stitching here. I will start in that stitching. I won't start right at it. I will go back in that, so that way it's secured and there's not like a little tiny hole or something. And then of course I'll back stitch that. So so just sew this up completely. Again, when I stop stitching, I will go back past that stopping part where I previously stopped at. I will go about 1/4 of an inch in, just to make sure it's completely sealed up, and then back stitch there. Okay. Clean up my threads, and then before I push the lining back down in the pocket, I will trim that up, seam allowance up, just like I did the side seams. Clean that up. So there is my lining. My lining is now completely shut. Okay, I'm getting a little warm here. Give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna take this jacket off. I don't hardly ever get warm, but I am right now. Okay, so we're gonna push this back down through the pocket. Make sure your lining fits in your bag well. So push your lining down in there, push your lining down in your bag, take a look at it, make sure it fits nice and snug. It looks good. Let's see, here we go. Let's shape it up a little bit. There we go. And then once you see that your lining looks good in the side of your bag, then what you're going to do, go back in your pocket, pull just your pocket out like this. So when you pull your pocket out, it'll be right sides. You'll see the right sides of it, because obviously your pocket's going to be down inside. So when you do that, and remember we had we stitched those seams flipped up when we sewed the sides of the pocket shut. What you're going to do is you're going to grab your sides of the seams of your pocket, grab a hold of those, and you should just give it a little bit of a tug where your piece kind of folds in a little bit like that. Do that, and then get a hold of it and close it, hold it up, give that a clip, clip that shut, and then what you're going to do is you're going to stitch your pocket shut like that. From here, you're going to go straight through here. Some say do 1/8 of an inch of a seam allowance, sewing your pocket shut, 1/8 of an inch from here. I go between a 1/16 and an 1/8 of an inch. I do not go a full 1/8 of an inch to sew my pocket zipper pocket shut. So I try to keep it as narrow as I can, but making sure I catch both sides of this pocket. So if you're not careful, the part of your pocket can slip, and then it does not seal shut. So you just be careful when you sew it shut. And then with this, oh my gosh, with this thread, you won't even be able to see the thread probably. Well, I'm sure you'll see it, but you know what I mean. So we're going to sew this shut here. Grab hold of my thread so my thread don't pull through and I have thread nests. All right. Just go, I know I've said it a gazillion times, just go slow. Making sure, like I said, making sure you're still stitching, but you're catching both layers of your pocket. All right. And then clean those threads up. If you've got any long threads or any pieces of threads that need to be cleaned up that you can't trim short, everything looks good. So there's my pocket. It's sewn shut, completely shut. Push your pocket down in there. Now, be careful when you push your pocket down in there, because what happens sometimes, because the way you sew it shut, that little corner can kind of crawl up and not fold in there. I just give it a good little press in. Sometimes I'll take like a turning tool and just kind of push it down just so it lays a little better in there. But because you're sewing the seam inside the pocket like that, nobody really sees that pocket seam shut, and it works real well. So I'm going to zip this up. Oh, my little plastic is still over my zipper pull. There we go. Zip that up. So my bag is, lining is done. My bag is sealed up. And next to the last step, put my zipper pull on. So let's get our zipper pull. We'll get our zipper pull on, and then I will show you how like I have it a little long, but it helps. Number one, it helps you to get your zipper pull on, having it just a little long. And then you can clean it and trim it to the desired length that you want. Now, when you separate a zipper, if you're not comfortable with it, you can always mark where your zipper separates. You can put it like a time mark behind, like in a chalk mark behind, so you know when you put the zipper pull on, it matches. Or you can remember when you pull your zipper apart at the very end, remember which side the tooth, because you see there's one tooth that exceeds the other side. Remember which side that tooth is higher up. That's how you know your zipper is lined back up the way it should be. Okay? And I'm going to take it, and then you're going to zip it shut. Take it to the top. Make sure when you zip it shut that this matches. When you zip it shut, this should look very nice. It should set nicely together. If it's not, you can sometimes work it where you can have one side longer than the other, just a tad bit. Sometimes it'll shift it up here at this where it stops. It's honestly, it's hard for me to explain because sometimes I get confused. I have to do it back and forth a couple of times if I find that it doesn't match. I've had one recently that I made. It didn't match up well, and I had to go back and forth and work with it. And I could never remember what side I needed to go more or less. I just kept playing with it until I got it to match up the way I wanted it to look. So that's kind of something that you have to just kind of work with if it doesn't match up. But I'm very fortunate that I was able to get this one to match up right away. Okay, I'm taking all my little pieces off my covers. Okay, so now I see how this tail is quite long. which again, that's the way I personally want. Now you can go a little shorter. If you want, you can go, I can tell you, you can go, let me get that number, because if you want to go a little shorter, if you don't want to waste as much tape as I do, you can make your zipper tape, let's see, where is this? I think it's 9.5 inches. You can make your zipper tape 9.5 inches. That will make the zipper tape stop about here, where you're not, this is about 3-inch waist here. You can do that if you want. So you can make it 9.5 inches. That way you don't have as much waist, but I like to just pick my spot where I want it to, stop, which that is about where I want it to stop. But sometimes if you go the 9.5 inches, it may not sit exactly where I want it to be. But this, about where I want it to stop, is right before it gets to the end. So I'm just going to match it up, snip it at my, actually I'm going to snip it where my top stitching is. So I'm going to snip this here. All right, let me straighten that out. There we go. And I'm going to take my lighter, resinge it a little bit. Okay. And then there's 2 ways you can put a zipper end on. You can use those real pretty metal zipper ends, or you can do like a little folded up one. Zipper end. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do with this one, which is fine, because it's fine, since I'm not sure exactly what I want, but I'm going to go ahead and stick a little clip here just to hold it, so when I unzip it, when we unzip it and look at it, we're going to unzip it like that, and look in there, it's got a nice, you can get into it nice and wide where I've got the zipper stopping, and then it looks really nice. I love that lining. That is such a pretty lining. Tulip Bee. This is, I think it's watercolor painties, something. It's the paint. I say it probably different than everybody's. P-E-O-N-I-E-S, painties, pineys. I think everybody says it different, but that is what this lining is. It's such beautiful. And this is actually also Tulip Bee Faux Real. I'll have it in the description what this is. But this is, again, it's the Tulip Bee Persuade Me Medium Wash is what this is. And I quilted the center panel on the front and the back. All right, I'm going to put the strap on, get the gate rings on, put the strap on, raise the camera. And then we will show you the 100% completion, and I'll show you how the straps lay on the bag. And then we are done. Hard to believe. Hard to believe it took me 3 videos. I know. You're probably thinking, my gosh, how much longer can you make it? Well, quite honestly, I could probably make it longer. I could sure talk and make it longer. But I don't think you want to hear that, honestly. I don't think my husband wants to hear it, listen to me talk much more than I have to either. Okay, let me zip it up, because he's in the room sometimes when I'm filming these, so. But he's already left the room, so we can talk. All right. I'm going to raise the camera. So I'm going to put the purse in front of me as I raise the camera, so you don't have to look. And then let me tilt this back up a little bit. There we go. Now, pay no mind to the way I look. I bench up my stool all the way. So here's the bag. Isn't that so cute? I love it. See, look, even with the little zipper placket, you still have that shape. You don't see anything at the top. It's still a nice clean top. That's why I chose to do the zipper placket down inside, because it still has a nice clean top. You don't see anything that pokes out of the top of the bag. Look at that. And then this is the, again, this is the 21 3/4 inch. And then I've got the cute little things, and then you got the little strap in. So that actually adds a little weight to them, and it holds them down flat. But I love it. It is such a cute, I love this bag. I just think it's absolutely adorable bag. Let me show you, and look else, and then when you look inside here, you can see how that's nice, and it flows very nicely how I did that. Again, I'm going to come out with a video. I'm going to probably record it tomorrow night, Monday night. Tomorrow night. I'm not going to record it tomorrow night. I'm going to record it the 13th on Tuesday night. I'm going to try to post it after I record it. That's my goal, and what I'm going for is this bag's right here. Show you how I came up with all of the zipper placket, how I came up with my little upper contrast as well as the top part of the gusset, so it all flows together. I want to do a video on showing you how I came up with that, because as I mentioned already, I can't give you pattern pieces or anything because I took that from the pattern itself, but I can surely give you how I came up with it. So when you purchase the pattern, should you choose to do the placket like this, you will know where I took it from, where you can create your own. And I hope and then if you ever have any questions, once I do that, create that video, and you have questions, feel free to ask me. I mean, no problem answering questions. I do try to get back to you as quickly as I can. Keep in mind, I do work a full-time job during the day, so if I can't answer it during the day, I definitely will try to get to you at night, as long as I don't have something that I have to do at night when I get off work. Just a heads up. Okay, so this is the first, we have a purse down. So this is the first one I did. Okay, I love this. This is a gorgeous bag. This is Love Little Looks, her cross, I forgot what it's called, but it's Love Little Looks. Love that look of that vinyl. This black is Tulip Bees Timeless Tones Noir, N-O-I-R. I'll probably say it wrong. Absolutely gorgeous. I love the way this looks, but what I did is this lining is just a cotton lining interfaced with SF101, but this is the very first one that I did with the zipper placket. So if you see my zipper placket, it's not, the placket itself is kind of straight, but the way I did it don't look at it. But I only made this zipper placket 1 inch wide versus 1 1/4 inch. And I'm gonna tell you what, it makes a huge difference. This one's 1 1/4 inch. It makes a huge difference. Just that 1/4 inch on each side. So that's why I went 1 1/4 inch, and I would not go any smaller than that. This is the first one that I did when I did the placket, where the gusset is a full piece, and it is lining all the way up to the top, which again, it's still fine. There's nothing wrong with the way I think it looks, but I like the look of the full look better. So this is the first one that I did with that placket, and then I went on and made this one as I tested my plackets widths, and there is when I came up with the 1 1/4 inch, but I still had the lining come out. I call this my green bag because when I put these, when I picked out my lining, honestly, I didn't even think twice about the fact that this was yellow and I had a green bag. But anyway, so this is that bag there. This is Love Lola Looks again. Her flower, and this is Tulip Bee again, and this is Persuade Me. The green is, I want to say Forest is this green. Absolutely gorgeous. And I just actually made a little tiny purse, just a small little purse that I made using this print with Tulip Bee's Shimmer Glimmer collection. a blue, a sapphire blue with this. So this, I mean, you can really put a lot with this, but you can use purple. But anyway, enough of that. And then I did it again, tested it again, and then made this one. So I like the 1¼ inch width. I like the way that looks. You still have that nice finish. Lauren Mormino. This is her watercolor roses, and I can't remember what this the colorway is that she has. But anyways, this is her vinyl here. And then this is Persuade Me, Tulip Bee, and this is Burgundy. But look, this is a burgundy, but I matched it to try to blend a little bit with this rose, this flower here. And I thought that looked really well. I thought, loved it. And then I two-toned that handle to match. I two-toned this handle too. But I did the floral underneath, the green at top, the floral at top, and then the burgundy on the bottom. But anyway, all right, enough of, I wanted to show these to you because of the change of the bag and how we transformed the look of the bag. Transformed with adding the zipper placket, but it didn't transform the look of the bag, if that makes sense. Okay, let me get the one we just finished. This is where we have the bag down. So this is the one we just did the tutorial on. I hope you enjoy it. If you found me and you're not a subscriber, I would greatly appreciate if you become a subscriber. If you like these videos or like any of my tutorials, I would greatly appreciate a comment. Even if you don't like my tutorials, comment. I mean, honestly, I really would love some feedback. I know my tutorials tend to go on long. I do want to try to make them a little shorter, honestly. But I get so involved in showing things that it makes it longer, if that makes sense. I mean, this video, I've tried 3 times to do this tutorial, and this is my 3rd try, and I'm posting this one. I'm committed to posting this tutorial, even though it's in 3 parts, and this last part is actually kind of long. But anyway, so with all that being said, please let me know. And then if you know somebody who wants to see this tutorial, who wants to do this, if you could share, I would appreciate that as well. And then in the future, again, I'm going to show you the creation, but in the future, I do want to create the bag with the zipper sewn on as the pattern is written. I do want to try it again. I have a goal to succeed in that. I'm going to practice it a little more. I have the other bags that I'm still working on, trying to salvage the bags. I don't want to show those right now because I do want to make a video on trying to salvage the bags. I think that would be interesting. If anybody runs into the same problem and they need to learn how to salvage it, I want a video doing a salvage it. So I don't want to show those just yet. But I do have the desire to make this bag with the way the pattern is written. I got to practice more on it. I got a couple craft shows really close together, so I got to concentrate on getting through those the next few weeks. But after, it's actually honestly after my birthday, everything slows down a little bit. So I want to concentrate on practicing doing that and actually get some more tutorials out. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. I know I rambled on at the very end of this video. I get it and I understand it. If you didn't want to stay and watch the whole thing and see me ramble, hear me ramble, I get it. Honestly, I do. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Each and every one of you. And thank you so much for watching, and everyone have a great day. Bye.